What's up, guys? Your agent Tyler Wehrung here, and today we're going to talk all about the BRRRR model. I'm going to walk you guys through an actual deal that I just got done of fully BRRRRing out of. In fact, we got paid a little over $400 to now own and operate this rental property that cash flows positive every month. This is, in my opinion, the most powerful way to build wealth in real estate. So I want to talk to you a little bit about BRRRR. I'm going to walk you through this exact deal as kind of a case study. I'm going to show you all the behind the scenes documents, how we found the deal, how we negotiated it, and how we closed, refinanced, etc. So with all of that, let's dig in. Alright guys, so I'm going to start by showing you guys the deal. So I just have it pulled up here on Zillow. You'll see this is us purchasing it at 72. I'm going to show you a little bit. I'm going to show you some pictures in the property. So this property was actually listed for sale and it expired. But just want to show you kind of the quality here. So you see very decent rental, nothing too special about the property, but it's in actually really good shape, and the family has kind of taken ownership and kind of that pride of ownership here. It's definitely very homey. That's what we like to see. We love when our residents kind of make a property their own and really embody that homeowner feel to it. So you can see that here. Looks very decent, but also, like I said, nothing, over the top here. So what I want to show is, I'm going to show kind of the brief timeline here. So the seller that we bought from purchased in 2004 for, looks like, yes, 79,000. In 2018, they listed it for sale for $87,900. You'll see here several times it goes pending, then back on the market, and then looks like their agent made a mistake and listed for $89,000, then dropped the price to $87,000, went pending again. All right, so what they were trying to do was to sell this property as is with the tenants in place. So that's kind of, in my opinion, why it didn't sell on the market for this price. And after talking with the seller, she just became really good friends with the tenants that were here. She did not want to make them move, so she intentionally signed a year-long lease before she listed it for sale so that whoever bought the property would have to keep them in. She just got very frustrated with the listing process and trying to show the property while there were tenants in it, having them leave. They had a couple dogs, so it just became very frustrating. She would get offers, but then they'd ask her to fix a bunch of stuff, and it just didn't go well. So we ended up agreeing to purchase the property at $72,000. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but at least wanted to walk you through and kind of show you what was going on and what the quality of the property was. All right, so let's talk about the timeline of this deal and how we found it. So we sent a letter to her via direct mail, and we got her info off of an expired listing list. So we pulled a list from PropStream from all the expired listings, I think in the last year or maybe the last 6 months. She contacted us. She gave us an initial phone call to kind of told us her situation to see if we might be a good fit for it. We actually booked an appointment to go walk the property. She told us kind of in that initial phone call about the tenants. She wanted to sell as is, and she had a good equity position, so she didn't need to get top dollar. And those are very good candidates for an off-market deal, especially if you have multiple exit strategies. So yeah, we kind of just told her up front those two things. We do buy as is, we do buy cash, and we would buy with tenants in place, assuming they check a couple boxes for us, but we're not going to be able to give you top dollar for this property. And she was fine with that. So we agreed to go on an appointment to walk the property. After we walked it, we get an initial assessment. And typically when we walk these properties, we're just taking pictures of kind of all the big items, looking for any big ticket items that we're going to have to repair. And then we'll go give our cash offer. Typically within a couple hours. We advertise we'll get it to you in at least 24 hours, but usually it's within a couple hours. And we usually know right before we go on the appointment what we can offer. So we got her our cash offer of $70,000. And she was actually not very happy about that. She thought it could go for a little bit more. But we just explained to her, it's not a personal problem, it's a math problem. We have to, be all into this thing for a certain amount in order to get it to cash flow positive for us every month. which, you know, she understood, but she did have a good equity position, but she wanted to clear off a couple other things off her plate and kind of start with a very clean slate after selling this deal. So she just needed a couple more thousand to do that. And after talking with her and understanding her situation, what we landed on was a subject to deal. And I'm not going to go too much into the weeds here. I can shoot another video on subject to if you think that would be helpful. Drop a comment below if so. But basically, after understanding her situation, she wasn't looking to buy another property right away. She wanted to rent for another year or two and kind of wait for the market to fall. She owned her car outright, wasn't looking for another car. And the reason these two things are important is when you do subject to, their mortgage stays in their name, it stays on their credit report, it stays on their debt to income ratio, and it really impacts them when they go to finance another home or to go buy a car. It can negatively impact them. So typically, we're not a big fan of subject to deals because it usually leaves the seller in a worse place. We try to always leave people better than we found them in. But in this situation, she needed a little bit more. By doing subject to, that enabled us to bring a significantly less amount of money to the closing table, so we could afford to pay a little bit more for that benefit. So we kind of got her a little bit more money to kind of clear all of her plates and all her obligations. We were able to bring way less money to the closing table. So it was really a win-win all around, and we landed on $72,000. So that's how we negotiated that, really understanding what was important to her and trying to figure out if we had a tool in our tool belt to be able to make that happen. And it turns out that we actually could. So we closed on the deal, and then a couple months later, we were able to cash out, refi, and pull all of our money out, plus a couple $100s. And so I want to just compare that to the typical BRRRR model. So if you are very familiar with the BRRRR model, skip ahead to this timestamp over here. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into BRRRR, the fundamentals, for those that may not be as familiar. So BRRRR stands for buy, repair, rent, refinance, and repeat. So this is, like I said before, one of the most powerful methods because you get to recycle the same cash over and over. You know, a lot of us starting out don't have, you know, mountains of cash that we're sitting on that we can just go out and buy all the real estate. So it's important to be, if you put money down, to be able to get that money back, keep the property, and then go buy again with that same money and just keep recycling it. That's the powerful part about this strategy. So how this deal kind of lines up with the typical BRRRR. So we closed on it. That's the buy. We didn't have to repair because the property was in decent shape and they were already living there, so we didn't have to go rent it back out. When you do a typical BRRRR, the importance of renting it out is showing that it's stabilized and that it's bringing in income. A lot of banks want to see that before they're willing to lend money back out on it. And then we did our cash out refi. That's the second to last R in the BRRRR model. And we are trying to repeat this. We got a couple other deals in the pipeline now, and we're continuing to send out direct mail. So as you can see, this really lines up pretty close to a typical BRRRR without the repair and trying to rent the property back out. Sometimes those two things can be headaches and they can extend the process very long. So since we have a bank in place that does not require seasoning, Google seasoning if you're not familiar, but we were able to do this all in about 50 days. So we just had our money out in this deal for a little over 2 months before we got it back and now have a cash flowing asset. So I built a couple graphics. I'm a visual person, so I want to walk you guys through kind of how BRRRRs work and how to visually think through this model in your head when you're out looking for deals and seeing if they're good candidates for BRRRR. So pretty typically, banks want to see you have 20% equity in a deal, and they will lend up to 80% of the loan to value of the home. So in all these examples, we're going to be using $100,000 ARV or after repair value or appraised value. So typically, if you have a house that's worth $100,000, the bank will loan you $80,000. Now, talk to your bank. If they say they only lend 75% LTV, you can just, exchange that for you need to have 25% equity. So kind of the inverse. So this is pretty typical. Banks will do this all day long. Now, if you have a little bit more equity, say in this example, that same $100,000 house, you only owe or you only have capital into this deal at $50,000. Then the difference between what a bank is comfortable lending on, which is that 20% mark, versus what you owe, I just, in this example, called this equity plus. So this is kind of this opportunity zone. Now you can do a home equity line of credit against this amount of money, you can do a home equity loan against this amount, or you can do a cash out refinance and pull all that money back out of the deal and refinance the whole thing for what the bank is willing to go up to. I shot another video on kind of comparing HELOCs to cash out refis that I'll link to over here, but just want to kind of show this example. All right, and now this is more typically what a BRRRR will traditionally look like. So we're going to, assuming here that same $100,000 house, we need to buy it for 50. We need to be able to put 20,000 into it, or no more than 20,000, to give us this 10K buffer, and we could refinance for up to $80,000. So in this example here, we got 70,000 into it from the initial capital plus the rehab. If we refi out for 80, then we can put $10,000 in our pocket. We can take an Instagram picture with a $10,000 check from closing, and that would be a successful BRRRR. So, but this is how the actual deal that we're case studying today, this is how that looked on the same graphic. So you'll see the chart did change and go up to 125,000. So our purchase price, like we said before, was 72,000. And typically you would have to bring this amount of capital to the deal. But because we did this subject to, we bought the house subject to the seller's existing mortgage on the property. Since she only owed 56,000 and some change, we said, okay, we'll assume that we'll continue to make payments on her behalf, and then we'll bring the difference to closing. So our cash to close was just under 16,000 in this case, and then we accepted responsibility for her 56,000 and continue to make payments. So that's how we came up with the 72. If we would have not done it subject to and kept our price at 70, we would have had to bring $70,000 to closing, plus a little bit of closing costs baked in there as well. So you can see the benefit to us for doing it subject to only bringing 16 to closing, and then her benefit was getting $2 more thousand. Okay, so this property actually appraised for $120,000, with a little bit more than we were expecting, so always a good thing when you're doing a BRRRR. Sometimes it goes the other way, so luckily for us, this did appraise for a little bit over what we had thought. But you know, at the end of the day, our goal isn't to pull out the very max that a bank will loan on, because we have to consider cash flow when we're doing this. So what we did was end up refinancing it out for $75,000, and we'll show you why here in just a second. But this is how that deal shook out. So 20% of the appraised value is kind of what the bank would have been comfortable lending up to. So we could have taken a loan out for $96,000, had been all in for 72 and had a nice payday, but then this property just wouldn't cash flow, so it would kind of not make sense to do in the first place. So I want to show you guys how we analyze deals. I shot another video very much in depth on how we do that via deal check, but I'm just going to show you the deal check analysis here. So we just modeled in here kind of what you know, we bought for 72, we refinanced for 75, and after closing costs, appraisal costs, and fees and stuff like that, we were you know, given back to us a little bit less than $500. So, but this is the most important number. Excuse me, the cash flow and the cash on cash return. So this number has to be positive for us. Typically, we like to see a little bit more than $69. On a BRRRR deal, we like to see at least $100, but I'll show you why for a couple reasons why we continue to buy this. If you don't buy properties with positive cash flow, you're very limited on how you can scale and how big you can grow your portfolio. You probably have a couple extra $100 a month that you could spare to buy a cash flow negative property, but if you're putting $100 into a deal, you're probably not going to be able to scale to 40 or 50, because then you're cutting checks for $4,000, $5,000 a month. So any time that it's positive, you can scale to infinity, and it just brings in more in theory, right? So always want to look for positive cash flow here, and cash on cash return of infinity just means you got all your money out. So basically we got paid to buy this deal, and that's what that number is showing there. But and keep in mind that cash flow is after accounting for 5% vacancy and 35% of other expenses, you know, capex, maintenance, and other things that we talked about in that other video below. So our net operating income is $502, and then our loan payments on that $75,000 is $433. So NOI minus loan payments gets you our cash flow, And here is kind of the ballpark numbers on that. Infinity is what you always want to see here. But the reason we still decided to go forward with this deal is that I should have mentioned before, part of our negotiations to get to 72 was that we did have to sign a 1-year lease with the current tenants at their current rental rate at $800. So it's we'll show here in Deal Check where you can kind of look at rental comps. It's definitely below market, but not significantly. So you'll see average list price here at $981. Their rent estimate was at $1,000, and Zillow says it should be at about $1,200. Those are all a little high. Deal Check's rent comps aren't great, but just knowing this market, we think we can at least get 900 to 950. And when you put those numbers in, so after 12 months, we'll be able to bump the rent up a little bit. We don't like to jump it straight to market value. We'll kind of slowly creep up to a good number and get this thing cash flowing $100 to $200 a month. So that's why we decided to still pursue this deal. All right, so I know if you read about BRRRR and watch videos, it sounds so simple, but people wonder kind of, are you making up the numbers? Can you really do this? So just wanted to kind of show for full transparency the settlement statements and all the documents that you would typically want to see here. So this is the settlement statement for the buy side of this deal. So you can see here, bought it for 72. We assumed her loan at 56,557. So existing loans taken subject to. So you can see we did cover closing costs and the cash from the borrower, which is us. We had to bring $15,909 to the closing table. So that is on the buy side. This is the appraisal report that we got back. So you'll see here, really the only number that matters is this number here. I don't know why they give you such a large document. It did come in at 120, a little bit less than Zillow says, but yeah, this was an as-is appraisal. We figured it to be probably between 100 and 110 when we were going into this thing. So like I said, came out a little bit better. And then this is the settlement on the refi side. So you'll see here, disbursement to the first mortgage payoff. So that lien stayed attached to the property. We paid that mortgage off. That was her loan. So now she's in the clear, and we took out a loan for $75,000. So the difference between 75 appraisal, closing costs, and paying her loan off was $16,332. And a quick and dirty math there, that's just over $400 that was net positive to us, plus 2 months of cash flow that we got from renting the property during the time that we're refinancing it, but we're not even considering that in this numbers here. But yeah, now we have all of our money back to go put into another deal, and we are cash flow positive each month, a big whopping $70. All right, so final thoughts, guys, on this. So you can do BRRRRs without large rehabs. So this is something that I'll be transparent, kind of scared me off in the beginning. I didn't want to take on a large rehab while I'm still working a full-time job. I still have kids at home that I want to spend time with, so I don't want to spend my time on managing rehabs. You can find deals out there that are just under market and focus on the personal distress side of the equation rather than the property distress. So you can find properties that are in good shape, but just have a weird personal situation going on, and you don't have to do a ton of rehab. And you must consider your post-refinance cash flow. So in this example we showed you here, I could have taken out $96,000 on it based on the appraisal, but then again, that property wouldn't cash flow and I would not be able to do this at scale. So you have to consider that when you're running all your numbers and coming up with your initial offer and doing the analysis. And lastly, like I said several times, BRRRR and hold is the most powerful wealth building strategy that there is in real estate, especially when you're just getting started, because of that ability to recycle and reuse that same cash to build wealth. And guys, even if you don't pull all your money back out, we hear a lot of people say, oh, I didn't get a successful BRRRR. I only got 94% of my money back out. Anything less than keeping 20% in a deal is still a success and is still a home run in my book, because you're not doing it the traditional way. You still have a large chunk of your capital to go and put in other deals and to recycle. So don't get discouraged if you don't hit this out of the park and hit a home run. We don't do this on every deal. This was just a good case study, so we thought we'd shoot it here. But we still leave money in some of our deals, but most of the time they're in the single-digit percent column. So we call that a win all day, and we'll do those deals all day long. And so I hope this was helpful, guys, to see a real deal, to kind of see behind the scenes the numbers, the documents, how we got the deal and how we negotiated it. But if we left anything out that you feel like you really have a burning question on, please drop it in the comment below. I want to make sure this was fully transparent and made sense to all of you guys. And this is very repeatable. You guys can go do this. It's very simple once you get the right pieces in place. So if this did help you at all, please drop a like. I would be very appreciative. And with that, guys, I'm Tyler Wehrung with Keller Williams, and we'll catch you next time.